Hey, everybody, welcome to the Queen Comedy Podcast. It's James, and today I have a great comedian for you guys. Now, you guys know that I have been really interested in the Nashville comedy scene and like what's happening out on that side of the coast. Like even living in LA, it's great, and like having friends in New York and going to New York is great. But I haven't got to go to Tennessee. But it's like blowing up out there. Like comedy is getting so big. It's an amazing thing. And this guy, our guest today, he's from Tennessee, grew up there. He went to he was originally going to be a preacher, and then he became a comedian, and now he's about to do his a comedy album, and like it's just amazing. He's been all over the place. He and I can't wait to talk to him. He did the Killer Bees comedy special, which I know is like huge again in that area. Killer Bees is huge. I'm trying to get him as a guest on the podcast. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, he'll get back to you" or whatever. And so Drew has a new album coming out. It's called $11 Jokes. It's supposed to come out on November 11th of this year. So we recorded early so it could get released. So we could help him get it to the top of the chart. So if you listen to this and you haven't listened to the album or bought the album or checked out the album, please go do it as soon as you can. But let's jump into it with Drew Davis. Welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, James? I'm doing awesome. Super happy to be part of this podcast. Listened to a few episodes. I think what you do, it's a great podcast. I
Thank you.
enjoy it a lot. So
It started as a way to pick other comedians' brains so you can like get information and then give that information to anyone who might not have the same access that I have, right? Because there's a lot of people
yeah,
that don't have access to everybody. And
and there's
comedy
no
is
formal school for comedy. You
that's
learn by learning from others.
that's
So
exactly right. Exactly right. And so, maybe they can't afford to go talk to Robert Geely and get his coaching, or maybe they can't afford to go reach out to Tom Dreesen or all these other people, right? And get this plethora of information. Gene Perret has since passed. He was a great joke writer, and maybe you couldn't get access to him, or you didn't live down the street from him like I did, right? I got lucky.
yeah,
So all these things happen, and I'm able to share that information. That's my favorite part about the podcast is sharing information. So I'm glad that I could have you on here. This was your second album, correct? It's your second album.
yes. So I recorded my first album in 2019, and it's okay, listeners, if you haven't heard of it. That the when I first recorded my first album, which is called Revolutionizing Failure, it was about 7 years into comedy, and honestly, I thought I was done with comedy. I just accepted a full time youth ministry position. I thought my season in comedy was kind of finished, and at the time I was doing full time ministry, full time seminary, and trying to do part time comedy, and it just felt like a good time to kind of call it. And then a couple years ago, before that, I got back into comedy recreationally and the side hustle. And there was a season where I just realized a couple years ago that like, man, this is what I want to do full time. So I made the transition, and the second album's kind of like the first one's more about I like the first one's a lot about weird things about me that are funny, and then I'm a little self-conscious about, but then I end up making jokes about how it adds to my value a little bit. That's kind of why we call it Revolutionizing Failure. Second one's more about me going from full-time ministry to full-time comedy. That's kind of the and I guess if there's a higher message, which honestly I don't know if there really is to that one, it would be about the dangers of people pleasing, just kind of doing your own thing. That's important. So
That's a good one because that does happen. People are people. I'm a people pleaser sometimes, honestly.
I think all comedians are. You kind of have to be like, or at least the things that make you a people pleaser often are the same things that are getting you up on stage for the first time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So why the name? I'm just curious. Why the name $11 Jokes? Like, what's the name behind that?
Yeah, so it's based off of a joke I do, but as soon as the real life situation happened, I almost was like, well, that's the name of my second album. So I'm sure James, comedians, we travel a lot, and one of the things I do to try to save money is I'm blessed to have a lot of great friends all over the U.S. And so usually they let me stay at their houses, and some of them I haven't seen in like 15 years. Some of them I haven't seen since they were in college, and so now they have these things called kids that are roaming around the house. And so sometimes it's a little weird for the children that this, strange old man is just kind of hanging out in the futon downstairs. So one of my friends a while back in Indianapolis, I was staying there. And so she was like trying to explain to her 7-year-old boy like who this guy is, and she's like, this is Drew, he's a professional comedian, which means he gets paid to tell jokes. And so I'm setting up my bed later that night, And this kid, like in his PJs, just shows up. And he's like, "Hey, I know you're a professional chameleon." That's what he called me, chameleon. I was like, "Okay, okay." And then he said, "But when you're in this house, I'm going to have to ask that you don't tell any jokes because I only have $11." And and then the sweetest thing, I was like, "Oh my gosh, he thinks my jokes are worth more than $11." Like that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. So that's why I came up with the name $11 jokes. So
I love that. Now, did you tell him any jokes? Like, did you tell him any jokes or show him stand up?
yeah, we had fun because usually when they're kids that age, they ask you to tell them a joke so that they feel comfortable then telling you the jokes that they wrote or making up in the moment. So
Yeah.
usually I'll say like one short joke, but then really it turns into like, well, what are your jokes? And then we went and played Super Smash Brothers. So it was all good. So
Great bonding experience. That's actually sounds like you hung out with another comedian for a little while.
yeah, it was
Actually.
great. Yeah, there's very little difference actually when you break it down between a 7-year-old and another comedian.
That's very true. That is very true. So what made you decide to even start comedy? You were on this path to be in the ministry, or you're on your path to work in a church. What made you go, I should try comedy? Like how did that?
Yeah, so I
It's
actually
kind of a big gap.
yeah, no, so I started preaching when I was 16 years old. I've always, and from then, from like eighth grade, I knew I wanted to be a youth pastor, and that was kind of the route I went. I mean, I got, went to college for it. Actually, up until a couple years ago, my whole adult life was pastoring, youth pastoring. And so the common, I don't know if I would say compliment, weird statement people would say after I preach would be, they'd be like, "Man, that was a great message. And if preaching ever falls through, you should try stand-up comedy," which is really weird to tell a preacher. It's like, I wasn't really inspired by your message, but the jokes were funny. Like it was, like, so, but I've always been interested in comedy. I mean, I remember listening to Mitch Hedberg and Dane Cook and stuff like when I was in middle school, back on like MP3 players and Zunes and stuff with friends in study hall. And then, of course, in college was my big Jim Gaffigan revolution, where I mean, he's my absolute favorite. It always goes back to Jim Gaffigan. I like lots of comedians, but somehow I always end up watching one of his 10 specials and love it and still laughing as if it's the first time. So that's really my humor. But so I had been a pastor, youth pastor, officially like in a full-time capacity for maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe longer than that. I started my first pastor job when I was 19, which is kind of young to be a pastor, but that was when I started. And I had this kind of realization that like everyone I knew was like Christians. Like they were like the same kind of people, older, younger versions of me. I mean, I had my youth group, I had my friends who were other youth pastors, I had the church people that I was around. I was living in this rural town in Kentucky. Like everyone was, the same. And so I kind of wanted to get out a little bit, and I'd always been wanting to I was always interested in comedy. So I gave it a shot. I went to the first open mic. Had a blast, absolutely loved it. Met tons of people that were very not like the people that I was seeing at church. And I'll be honest, going into it, I was like, well, being a Christian, the Great Commission, like go and make disciples, go out to the world and stuff like that. I was like, well, this will be the area I go and minister. This will be the place where I meet not Christians. And I know, I wasn't wrong. Like I met a lot of different worldviews, but I am so grateful in hindsight, now that we're like 12 years in the future, I am so grateful that I made a point to get out of my bubble a little bit, because I like to think I helped people, but like I know for a fact, like all those different worldviews really kind of helped me form a better understanding. So like it's funny how you go in there thinking like, I'm going to make such a difference, and really other people are like making the difference for you. So, but I've always loved comedy. Part of it is I love going to areas that I wouldn't normally go to and meet people that I wouldn't, and kind of expanding my horizons a little bit. But it's just the getting up there and making people laugh and bringing joy and having fun with people and making connections. That's my favorite part. So
yeah, making connections is actually the best part of stand up. Like those moments. I was telling somebody earlier that my friend Paul Moonjean, he's a great friend of mine, has had me do this thing lately where instead of working my set that I'm trying to get ready for Dry Bar, he's just having me he's had me go on stage and not have a set list and just find the punchlines on stage, which is not my normal style. Like I really like to like sit down and write and work on jokes and craft everything. And so it's been scary, but also so much fun, like so exhilarating to do those things. And so I get to experience those different worldviews in real time, right? Because I'm trying to find a joke, and someone may not have the same point of view as you, and you say it and you can see the instant feedback and go, okay, let's get
Yeah.
into this. Like I talked about recently buying a Tesla. And there's a lot of Tesla haters out there. I had no idea it was that big of a deal. And some girl in the front row of a show was like, ugh. I was like, yeah, like you like literally made that sound. And I was like, you have something against Teslas? Like, I'm trying to save the planet here and not spend so much money on gas and whatever. And she's like, no, I just hate Elon Musk. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's a whole different thing. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna hate on like. Have you checked into every CEO who owns every company? Because you're probably not going to be wearing or eating anything if you start doing that kind of research. You know,
It's like that's fair, but that's a bold conclusion to jump to based off of just hearing ugh. You know, like, there's no way you would have known that. Like, oh, that's the sound of someone who hates someone else, you know?
Yeah, I had no idea. So I was like, wait. I had to stop, you know, because I'm just trying to find the punchline here. But if I was in my normal set doing a thing, I would not have reacted to that. And so as a comedian, those different worldviews, those different things that you hear from other people, if you're open to it, will help you find bigger things, different things, you know. And so it was
sometimes
really good.
Yeah, I feel like when I go in there with something I'm working on, sometimes the things I think are going to be funny are the things that are not funny, and I learn to kind of take those out. But then sometimes you say something enough times and you get weird reactions, or you start. It's like you said, you find the punchline that's there, and and I know I was listening to Kevin Hart's podcast, and that's actually how he puts together his stuff. Like he actually has people that like stand in the back and write down what the jokes are, and he'll get up at an open mic and he won't have any jokes written, he won't have anything, he'll just like start telling what he wants to talk about, and then like anything that gets a laugh, he's got people back there writing, and then later they'll be like, okay, here are your jokes, and that's an interesting. That isn't that weird? Like it sounds similar to what you're doing, and I'm trying to become more comfortable being a little bit on, you know, flow a little bit more up on stage versus have the exact set list. A comedian told me not too long ago that the jokes are just the tools. We're the entertainment, right?
Yeah.
So like that's always important. You should never get so bogged down with what you're gonna say that it messes with your delivery or messes with the connection you're making with the audience. I heard a few years ago, and it's been something I've held true since. That comedy is a business of relationships, and I mean, you can, you know, when you get higher up, that's like, you know, between you and the bookers or you and the other comedians you're working with. But like at its root, when you're performing, it's between you and the audience. You're kind of creating a relationship when you're up there.
Exactly. Now, you did the Killer Bees special. I know that was a big deal. I know a lot of people that did that. How was that? How is Killer Bees? I hear all these great things. I've never got to meet him. I've never got to talk to him. I've tried to reach out. I've been stonewalled so far.
Oh,
so I don't know.
Well, he's a delightful human being. He's I mean, like, I kind of I don't know if he likes the word like grandfather of comedy kind of thing, but like I felt like he was just like, when I got there, like just this big friendly grandpa guy, but not, I mean, but like cool, like the cool grandpa. But I mean, he was very good when he got on stage. It was funny. He definitely has an audience. Like lots of people came specifically for that show because they knew Killer Bees. The show I performed at, I was the first one up, and we had a very drunk woman heckler right off the bat. And so he got up there and he did his set the way and then she was so interactive, and he interacted with her for a bit. Then he's like, okay, well, we got to redo that. But when I got up there, she talked with me. I did my best to ignore her. Usually I like to interact. Usually it's, you know, I make friends with them and they shut up eventually, but like, I had to keep telling myself, okay, keep doing your jokes, doing it. I mean, I don't need to put my crowd work on live TV here, you know, right. like we have jokes we want to do. And then I actually had the opportunity to go back out there and do another 10 minutes because they kind of took care of her afterwards. They asked her to move a little bit so she was less, you know, right there after my set. But it was so I'm excited to see the special when it comes out, because I actually ended up doing 25 minutes out there.
Wow.
Like 15 of my, like what I would say is like my the stuff I went there to do. And then they were like, oh, do you have another 10 minutes? Because we'd like to do a reshoot if that's okay. So of course I said yes, but then I was like, this is like all my like beam, you know, like these jokes are good, but like I wasn't planning on putting them on television, you know, like yet at least, you know. So it'll be interesting to see because I think there are good parts of both routines. So it'll be interesting to see what they put together. But it was a cool couple days. It was a lot of fun. I hope I hope the show gets out there. I have no idea when it's releasing. They said we'll let you know closer to when it comes out. We haven't heard from them yet, but I've been telling people it's the first TV credit of a place that someone might hear of that I've been on, like, because it's going to be on Amazon Prime, which people have heard of Amazon Prime. All the other things I've done, I feel like I have to justify the TV. So like I have to tell them how to get the free trial to the website to see this thing. To be
that's one of those things, man. That's great because I think it was like, was yours is Alabama, right? Is that right?
Yeah. I was in Birmingham, Alabama for that as a Stardome. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of comedians that I knew that were going out there to do it. And I was like, this is amazing. Good for you guys. I'm glad someone's doing more stuff. Mm-hmm. We need more of that. And hopefully it goes well and they'll do another season of it or whatever they're going to do with stuff. And that would be great. So that's awesome. Now, you did the Clean Comedy Challenge. Mm-hmm. I also did the Clean Comedy Challenge. I did it 9 months into doing stand-up, which is probably the worst time to ever do it. No, it was not. Right. I think when I got on stage, like everyone had been doing it way more than me. Like Marty Simpson was there. Like it was just like all these great comedians were there, and like they had all been doing it way longer than me. And so I was like, I'm
and
just
then you ended up
learn.
Winning, right? Like,
no, I did not win. No. This was Rocky 1 where I got beat. So I did not.
That's fair.
It's not Rocky 2 though. Yeah, I know. 100%.
We like a good underdog story, like a good road to recovery kind of thing. So.
Well, what it did is it opened a lot of doors for me, and a lot of people see I had this raw talent that could, and if I listened, right, and Robert G. Lee said, look, if you listen and you pay attention to what I'm telling you, it's gonna go beyond raw talent, and it has. I've done the things that he said to do. I let him coach. I have him teach me, like all these things. I took all their feedback. I recorded all their feedback because they give you notes after every show.
Absolutely,
and I did that, and it was just like changed so much. But I'm glad I did it like 9 months in, as opposed to like 5 years in, right, where I had to like do like a giant change or drastic change or something was different. So, what was your experience with it, and what did you think?
So I did it twice actually, so that was pretty cool. And both times it was this past summer and then the summer before that. So pretty into comedy. It was actually the first thing that I did after I left my day job as a youth pastor. I finished the last day as a youth pastor, flew to LA and did the Clean Comedy. Actually, I moved back to Nashville, spent one night in Nashville, and the next day I flew to LA for like a week and a half. So, and part of that was for the reason I moved there or flew there, whatever the word I'm looking for is. The reason I went there was for the Clean Comedy Challenge. But then I was like, might as well enjoy the comedy scene here a little for a few. I made it Doug a vacation. My experience was I enjoyed both years. I felt like there's a cool thing about stuff like that, and I always tell people, especially if they're doing the Clean Comedy Challenge, but this could be true for any kind of festival you do. Like the performing is a lot of fun and really cool. And obviously it's probably going to be your favorite part, but you want to go there for the seminars. You want to go there for the critiques. You want to go there for the networking. That's and for like something like the Clean Comedy Challenge, like that's what you're actually paying for is the meeting the people and the getting the information. And I really felt like it was interesting, even just with a year apart, I was able to get information that was good for me for the season that I was in. Right. So the first year I felt like a lot more informational. I get to meet some people that had been in the business for a while. I loved being in those Q&As and listening. And like, maybe if like you said, you were like 9 months in, when I was 9 months in, this was a recreational hobby at best. Fun. I would have been asking more questions about like how to make good jokes, how to have a good, like how to do my set. But going into it after like a decade of it, the questions I was asking was like, okay, like how do I send emails to bookers? How should I phrase it? What are the things that but the cool part about any kind of event like that is you have people in all the different perspectives, so they're able to get the kind of information they want. So so it was fun. I probably enjoyed the one in LA more than the one in Rhode Island, but both were really cool.
That's awesome. I'm hoping to do next year's. I want to go back. I want to see how I kind of have grown.
I'm sure a lot, man. I'm sure it'll be like completely different. So but
I don't even do any of the jokes that I did like then that I worked on, and I worked hard. Like I had a comedy coach. I worked through a lot of stuff, but those jokes, they're just not the same. It's not the same anymore,
And you end up. It's funny because like right now I can think of like certain. I was thinking about this in comparing my first and second album. I don't know if we even call them albums anymore. First and second special, I don't know. But like but there's some jokes on the first one that I don't do anymore at all. But I remember there was a time where like I couldn't picture doing a type 5 without those jokes. Like you have your best in the moment, but 5, 10, whatever, however many years, however many months from now, you're going to have a different routine. You're going to have different best jokes. And so,
Yep.
but it's funny, but in the moment, like I was like, I can't picture, I mean, there's some jokes that like, I kind of forget I have because I just don't do that. But I used to do them like, it'd be like a big closer or whatever, like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I have jokes now that I maybe like started back in the day. I thought about writing and I just kind of left them. And then I slowly, as I got better, I could write them out and I could do more things. And there
yeah,
are some
and
jokes
sometimes they come back. Sometimes I have a new bit that I've been working on, and one of my older jokes that I haven't been doing in a while, it fits just perfectly with that bit, which is funny because it's like way better than the other jokes, or at least better written or honed or whatever. So now when people tell me like, oh, that bit was great, especially that Kesha joke, I'm like, well, that joke's been around since Kesha was relevant. So
yeah.
it's
It's good. I love that. Yeah, I want to do that. I'm going to probably do the 2024 challenge. I think I want to just
have
go
they
back and
announced where
kind of
it's
see
going to
it.
be at yet? Or
No,
yeah,
no.
probably too early for that.
I'm hoping that I mean, they usually will do one in LA. They do like one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. I'm hoping we'll do LA, and I definitely want to do it again. I think I grow so much in that week. Like even that,
Absolutely.
the first time I was there, I grew so much. And I still have all the recordings on my phone. I think I might have saved them on my hard drive too, but I still have them. And I go back and listen to what they advice that, Robert G. Lee and Joby and like all these people gave me. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's really helped a lot. And in the moments where I'm not sure what to do, where I go, I don't know where to go here, I'll go listen to those and take that feedback and go,
very cool. Yeah.
All right, this is a good way. Let me think about doing it this way or whatever. And so I used to have an opening joke about my wife being like partially blind and whatever and stuff. And Robert G was like, the audience, you lose the audience with that joke because you have them won over and then you poo-poo on your wife and then they don't like you anymore. He's like, it's it's a funny joke. It always gets laughs, but the audience then is no longer on your side. He's like, that you cannot, you don't want to do that. Yeah. So it was a big eye opener. I was like, oh, it just got to be funny, right? You just got to if you get the laugh, it works. And that's not always true. Just because something gets a laugh doesn't mean it's the right thing.
I remember a good piece of advice they gave me during my critique. It was during the first year. Joel Madison was one of the judges there, and he was one of the writers on Crashing, which is like one of my favorite TV shows.
I love that show.
Former youth pastor turned comedian, so I was like, it's like they wrote my story before it happened, except he had a wife or didn't have a wife, I guess. Anyway, but I remember he really like he looked at me. He's like, okay, a lot of your jokes about being a former youth pastor. He's like, but you have to figure out who are you now that you're not a youth pastor, because you're going to start. I mean, those jokes are okay, but like there's jokes that are more relevant to your life now and going forward. And it's like you're going to have to figure out your voice a little bit now that you're not a youth pastor doing comedy. Now you're just a comedian, and that was something that stuck with me for like a whole year. Like that's been in the back of my head, like dwelling. And then I also had the best 2-minute set of my entire life at the Clean Comedy Challenge, and it was did they do like I'm gonna call, I don't think this is what they officially call them, but this is what I call them, like the loser sets. Like after they pick the top 5 finalists, then everyone else gets to do like 2 minutes when they're doing 5 minutes.
I think so. I think there was something like that.
Yeah, the very it's for you. It's been a while, guys. But I just when I had the pressure off of not being in the finals, but they told when half my critique, they were talking about jokes I'd already written. I get in there, they're like, have you thought about doing jokes about your high voice? And I was like, oh man, I forgot I have those jokes. But yeah, I was like, and then I was like, well, I'm definitely gonna do this for the finals, except I didn't make it to the finals, so I did them for my 2 minutes. And something about whether the joke, I don't know if it was the jokes or I think most of it was I was like so much calmer not having to be in the actual competition. I just was able to have fun with the audience, and I swear it was to this day the best 2-minute set I've ever had. So sometimes
you just have to like let it go. Like you just have to go, it is what it is. I find in the moments where I go, whatever happens, I don't care. Then I have great shows. When I'm like, I gotta get through well, and it's like I did casinos, I'm doing 300 room, people packed in there, and we're doing back, and it's like all the stress, and it's not a great. It's a good set, right?
Right.
No one else outside of you would probably know it wasn't a good set
Absolutely.
for you, right? But you know that wasn't my best. That
You
I
can just
missed
tell
it.
it's like less organic, for lack of a
Yeah,
better word. You can just tell. Like I had said this week actually that objectively it was a really good set, and but I know there was a lot of pressure internally for me because there were people there that wanted to book me for other shows. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go in there with the guns ablazing, you know,
yeah.
and like I got lots of laughs and it was a good set, but like in listening to the recording, I was like, man, I can tell I'm nervous. I can tell I'm speaking fast. I'm not really like, I'm just doing the punchlines and not really kind of meshing with the audience as best as I could, you know?
Yep. Yeah. I just did a set last weekend, and the headliner bowed out. They didn't never got up there, so we had to call somebody.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
so I was up there and I was like, I'm just, because I don't know how long I'm gonna be here, I'm just gonna kind of riff and do crowd work or whatever. And there's a table of all these like women that were like mothers and wives that were out for the night, and they were just like, drinking it up. And I just they were so loud that I couldn't not ignore them. So I just like talked to them and went in on what they
Yeah.
were doing, and it was just great. And then like every comedian after that realized they want interaction. So it was a great show. One of my favorite people, David Rosenberg, who's one of the best crowd work comedians, just like his set was amazing because
That's awesome.
he's so good at it. Doesn't really write jokes, which I think is like, I always find it funny when he says that to me. He's like, yeah, I don't really write jokes. And he's known for being a great crowd work guy. I'm like, you got to write jokes, dude. He's like, you got to do crowd work. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what side I could be on anymore, So it's like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, what do you have goals? But after this album comes out, do you have goals? Are you trying to like get it to dry bar so you get a dry bar special? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah. So, ultimately, I would love a dry bar special. I actually just got my first response. I've emailed dry bar a few times over the years. This last a few weeks ago, I actually just got a response from them for the first time, which was we're full to try again. So,
Yeah.
but hey, they responded this time, so that was a start,
Yeah.
So that I really hope the album helps get me out there more, where I can get more paid work. That's the I'm like breaking even with comedy, but the truth is I want a more sustainable living from it. So just doing more bigger shows, making more money from it, more regularly perform, and that I love traveling to new places. I do a lot in the southeast right now, so just getting out there more is a big thing. More opportunities. If we're talking about overall goals, I would love a dry bar special, but I would love even more than that a Netflix special. I would love to get picked up on something like I love the idea of having it's like we were saying earlier, a special on a network people have heard of.
Yeah.
That would be where I don't have to spend 10 minutes explaining about it once they ask what I do. I would love. I've really enjoyed meeting more famous comedians and performing with them. That's been pretty fun. So I'd love to do that more. I started a group here locally called the Clean Comedy Collective, and we produce clean shows, just kind of in the area. I say in the area, but we go as far as like Huntsville or West Tennessee, or we were in the annual Corn Day Festival in Carmi, Illinois, last week doing shows. So, but yeah, so with that, I'd love to keep doing bigger and better shows with the Clean Comedy Collective. But I do have it kind of set up in a way where if it gets to the point where I'm too busy to run it, it's a whole collective, so I can eventually step away and continue to do my thing and have it run kind of organically. So.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do, is build back up, because I was producing shows prior to the pandemic, and then I was like, all right, I kind of let it go. But I'm like, now there needs to be more comedy. We need more spaces. So that's what I've been focusing on, and that's a big goal for 2024 is to have weekly shows that I'm just producing and doing and stuff.
We are in a space right now where people are wanting it, sometimes to the point where people don't even know they're wanting it. But then when they go to the show and they have a good time, they're like, oh, this is really good. And I think there's a lot of reasons that clean comedy is kind of picking up in this current year and where we're at right now. But I think one of them is we just got out of a pandemic. We just got out of a really negative, rough time. People like to come to shows and just not, enjoy things in a way where they're not worried about being offended, not worried about, we're just like, they just want kind of the more positivity route. And so this is a good time for clean comedy, if we're being honest. With people, Nate Bargatze making a big deal. He's kind of making some waves for that we can ride a little bit. But I think just in general, this being post-pandemic world, I think this is a good time for, and that's not something I realized until I started producing more shows. I started producing more shows so that I could network with people and get more shows on my own books. But then in talking to other comedians, especially in hearing from the audience members, a lot of them were so relieved once we did shows that there was something going on.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you're just like, all right, this is great, man. Like people are like, and it helps when you go to a venue, right? And you say, I do clean comedy, your clientele's not going to be offended. You're going to be able to bring whoever you want to it. You can have whatever, especially if you're going to like a restaurant or someplace where families are known together, then it works. Like I have a pizza place that we do, but they want to do family stuff.
Yeah.
And then I have like a wine bar that I'm talking to. And again, they're not going to do family, but they're happy that, hey, no one's going to get drunk and upset that somebody said something here. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to do that either.
There's like the family friendly themes for the places like the pizza places, but also a lot of those breweries or wineries, they just don't want to. They don't want stuff that's going to cause their people who are drinking and chilling to be like, oh, I don't want to hear this. I'm going to go take my wine elsewhere.
Yeah.
So there's
or I'm going to get confrontational or upset or whatever.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So yeah. I agree.
That's awesome. So, Drew, where can people find you? Where's the album going to be dropping at, so they know like where to get it? All those kind of things, so that way we can get it going, and everybody can go and get it the day that it drops and stuff. And can you pre-order it? Is it pre-order?
You can pre-order it on like Apple Music.
Okay, I'm gonna do that right now.
Yes. My preferred ones. For me personally, I love you. There's gonna be the YouTube video of it. On just regular YouTube, and then there's also going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on Spotify, and that's the one that I listen to all of mine. Those will come out exactly on 11/11 at 11:11 a.m. But on there's going to be a lot of the other streaming services where people get. So, for example, like Apple Music and stuff like that, you'll be able to get it. What I've been telling everyone is it's free on all platforms. I'm pretty sure it's free. Yep, that's me. Yep, that's me.
Already added it, so I'm gonna get. It's already added to my thing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's free. It's free on all platforms. But I do give people the option to donate. And I usually on the links I'll have like my own Venmo, Drew Davis Comedy, which is my Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok handle. And so if you follow me, then you'll be getting all the updates of when it comes out. You'll be seeing the links. You'll also be seeing what shows I'm doing around. And what I've really, I thank you so much, by the way, for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate a lot of the awesome comedians in the community that's let me come out and spread the gospel of $11 jokes. And then what I've always been saying in this moment is also like, not just for myself, but for James and for any other comedians, it's such a huge help when people follow our Instagram and our other social media. You were talking about goals earlier. One of my more immediate goals for 2024 is to build my social media presence and following, because I'm at the point in my career now where, and I've even had a headliner and celebrity comedians tell me these exact words. They say, you have the material, you can perform, any place that you go, you'll do well in their show in whatever capacity. They're like, but what's stopping you from getting work is your following. Because nowadays people don't, when you apply for a comedy club, they don't ask how funny is this person. They ask how many followers do they have. For anyone listening, the best thing you can do for me and James and any other comedian on this guest is you can follow us. You even hit follow and then mute notifications. And but I'm not so proud that I won't accept those follows. But that really helps us get out there so that we are more bookable to people that can give us work. But I'm very excited about this album. It's different than my first one, and my first one's already out on YouTube and Spotify and all the places. Revolutionizing Failure. It sounds like a 25-year-old version of me. So sometimes I listen to it and it's a little cringy, but I've heard it still holds up. I've heard people still enjoy it. So yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you, Drew, for coming on. I'll put all the links in the show notes for Drew so you guys can find all the stuff. Please go download it. The moment you hear this will drop the week that it comes out. So go listen, go download it. If you the moment you hear that, go stop this podcast. I know that I shouldn't say that. But stop this podcast. Go and download it, and that way you can have it, or go turn on YouTube and watch it. We want to help Drew. We want to help move him up the charts. get him out there so we can get more followers. He can be doing more work. He can hire me to feature for him and stuff, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, you know, I'm just kidding, but you just support comedy, man. Like, it's important that we support. And so let's make sure that we're supporting him. Thank you so much, Drew, for being on the podcast. Thank you, everybody. Please go like, subscribe, and follow everybody. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.